I'm rolling, by
technically
the way.
Equal Pay Act.
Okay, you could just look at Dana.
Okay.
So start off with your name and your profession.
Okay, my name is Mel Sabino. I'm an HR manager at Travel Store Inc. We're a travel management company. I'm a PHR, a professional in human resources, and a SHRM certified professional.
Okay. So, do you, I'm sorry. Okay, so have you ever like faced discrimination in the workplace as a woman?
That's a trick question, because in this day and age, the sad part is pay disparity based on gender very much exists. Okay, as I was telling you earlier, in the olden days, before 1963, if you were a man and you were a woman, and you had the same knowledge, skills, abilities, experience, skill set, they would probably hire the man, and that man would probably make about 50% more than if they hired the woman. And that's the reality of it. In this day and age, it's not as intense because there are laws and ordinances that have been put in place, like what we talked about, which is the 1963 Equal Pay Act, and there's also the most recent one from President Obama, January of 2009, which is the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which intensified President Obama's intention of transparency in terms of compensation in the workplace, whether you're a man or you're a woman. If you ask me if I've experienced discrimination in the workplace, probably not as much as companies that are the company that I work for is an ESOP company. It's employee owned, so transparency is required, but not all companies have that that requirement in terms of procedure or protocol. So when that's not in place within a company, the probability is that will exist because they're not open about compensation. So how would you know that someone who has the same skill set as you, who's worked the same amount of time, who have put in the same level of productivity, is getting equal pay just because he's a man and you're a woman? And the reality is it does exist, and it mainly exists in the bigger companies, the Googles, the Amazons. If you look at them, the executive level, you will see that the women executives are really less paid than the men executives of the same level. But on the other hand, our job in the Human Resources Department is to mitigate risks, because if you continue to have that kind of culture of inequity in terms of pay, you run the risk of being investigated, especially for bigger companies. Bigger companies are required to submit their executive pay structure to Department of Labor or the EEOC, and now, because there are more women in the workplace, the probability of litigation against a company because of inequity of pay, it's more constant. So, it's an ongoing process. The fact is, we are progressing in terms of that, in terms of a positive direction, in terms of equal pay. But I think, we've got a long way to go, especially in the government structure that we have now, where our politicians seem to push for an imbalance in terms of men and women. So, I mean, not that I'm saying anything about the current government structure, but the structure that we have now, the presidency seems to promote a little bit of inequity at this time. And I think
Want to take a shower?
I think at this point in time, and I'm being political now. Okay, I'm an HR manager, but I see how the current political structure does affect things, subject matters like that. So.
So what actions do you think that society as a whole needs to take in order to raise more awareness towards it and make the gap even less or even not be there,
Unfortunately, the probably the strongest or the most the best way we can fix something like this is really to have more men and more women who experience such kind of disparity. I think they need to be more vocal and take the proper route so that there's more awareness to such problems. And if it means going to the EEOC, going to the Department of Labor and filing a grievance against institutions or organizations that enable inequity in terms of pay, I think that's probably at this time the best way, because you have to have a voice, and in this day and age, that's the best way to fix a problem, is to make people aware. In this day and age of social media, that's usually the best way to address an issue.
All right.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thanks.